Yo, what's up viewers, it's your boy Blaze Hollow coming at you again with another what if. This time we bring you what if Deku ate the hormone through part 11. I know it's been a while guys and a couple of you might be upset with me, but my family's been sick, I've been sick, and my editor's been going through some stuff, so I hope you all can understand. But with all that said, let's get into it and start this thing. Start that intro.
I don't think you can become a hero.
A couple of days had passed as Izuku was finally allowed to return to school, as she had a big smile on her face as she noticed a lot of guys were giving her a worried look, while most of the girls looked at her with pride as she looked into the corner of the room, seeing Bakugo, who was staring out of the window. She was about to walk up to him only to be stopped by Momo. "Hey there Izuku, I hope things are going well. I noticed that you were out of class for a few days. Do you need help catching up on some of your lessons and maybe even some of your homework?" Izuku had a gray cloud over her head, just remembering all the extra assignments that her father gave her. "No, I'm actually ahead by 2 weeks and possibly have some college credit." Momo was confused until she thought about it. "Oh, that's right, Sensei's your father, so he probably had you do all the lessons at home. My bad, I just really wanted to help you." Izuku giggled a little bit. "It's okay, Momo. I just know that I don't want to be suspended and do homeschool for 2 days ever again." Momo was about to say something else until Kirishima got in between the both of them, trying to be polite as possible. "Izuku, the guys and I have been talking and we've been kind of wanting to ask you something, but since I drew the short straw, I have to be the one to ask you personally." Izuku tilted her head, wondering what this was about as she looked over at all the other males who were trying to avert their gaze from her. "And what exactly might that be, Kirishima?" Kirishima was trying to find the courage as he finally came out with it, but said it really loud. "Can you please not crush anybody else's balls in the class? After the battle with Bakugo, all of us have been shaken and thinking that we might be next." Izuku felt bad as she placed one of her hands on Kirishima's shoulder. "Trust me when I tell you, unless you've done something like Bakugo did in the past, your balls are all safe." Kirishima ran back to all of the guys as all of them seemed to be rallying like they just heard the greatest thing in their life. "Oh, thank God, we're all safe." Mina walked up behind Izuku and hugged her by wrapping her arms around her waist. "So what did I miss? Why are the guys acting like they just got thrown into paradise?" Izuku leaned her head back onto Mina's shoulder, making sure that they were making eye contact with each other, looking very lovingly. "I just told them that all of their manhoods are safe." Mina wanted to so badly kiss Izuku in that moment, but she held herself back as she was just putting a blush on her face as she stared at Izuku. "Right, that's good for them." The door to the classroom then slid open, revealing Eraserhead, who was still drinking from his morning coffee as he looked around the classroom, seeing everybody stumble to their desk quickly as possible. "All of you took about 5 seconds. You're getting better, but it's not perfect. I'm expecting better in the future." He then took a sip from his coffee as he put one of his hands in his pocket like he was trying to find something. Once he did, he held onto it for a second. "Alright, today's class is going to be very important, so I need to make sure that you're going to pay attention and not make any mistakes, because today's class is all about..." Everybody in the classroom saw him holding up a small sign that said rescue on it. Some were excited, some were not excited at all. Ochako was so excited that she actually stood up from her desk. "So where will we be doing rescue training today, Sensei?" Eraserhead looked at her for a second as he then picked up his coffee cup again and sipped from it, wishing that it was a stronger cup of coffee. "We will be going to an off-campus vicinity where we'll be accompanied by experienced rescue heroes that will help me introduce you to the forms of rescue." As he finally finished his cup, he started to scratch the back of his head. "So why don't all of you go get changed and meet me in front of the school for the bus?" We cut inside of the girls' locker room where we see all of them changing, dating. Momo alongside Hagakure and Tsuyu were a little bit confused, watching Jiro and Ochako be a little bit handsy with each other. As the three of them were watching, Jiro pinched Ochako's ass, but instead of hearing a sign of annoyance, it could have been mistaken for a sign of pleasure. As both girls were just staring at each other's eyes with lust for a second, they just stood straight up and shook their heads, trying to get back their concentration. Momo leaned over towards Tsuyu. Is it me, or does it seem like the both of them are dating? Tsuyu turned her face a little bit as she could whisper into Momo's ear, but she seemed to be focused on somewhere else. If you think they're bad, you should check out the other two. Momo looked over only to see Mina nibbling on Izuku's neck while Izuku was squeezing onto Mina's ass from inside of her own pants. Oh my god, do the both of you have no shame? Izuku snapped out of it as she realized that this wasn't the time or place as she quickly pulled away. Sorry if I made you uncomfortable, Momo. I just thought because of the type of costume that you wear that you would be used to this kind of stuff. Momo felt like she was being insulted. I only wear that costume because it works perfectly with my quirk. Nothing less, nothing more. Tsuyu had so many questions and just felt like finally asking them. So am I to assume since the four of you are in a relationship, that's the only reason why you keep feeling each other up? Jiro just shrugged her shoulders at that question. I wouldn't say that. It's mainly because of our job together that we're so used to touching each other this way. Tsuyu started to rub her left arm, feeling a little bit uncomfortable. Can you please stop? No offense, but I'm really not the biggest fan of seeing stuff like this. Mina was confused. Are you talking about people being lovey-dovey in front of you? Tsuyu was trying not to be rude, but felt like it was going to turn out that way no matter what she said. I'm not comfortable with gay relationship. I feel like it's just not natural. The entire girls' locker room got quiet as it was a little bit cold as Momo along with Hagakure stepped away from Tsuyu, not wanting to get dragged into the conflict. Mina was a little bit upset by that statement, but at least wanted to hear Tsuyu out. Can you at least explain to me why you don't like gay relationships? Tsuyu sighed, knowing that this was not going to end well. It's truly because it's not natural. We're supposed to be dating the opposite sex. It's how it's been for years, if not centuries. And now you're basically wanting to feel up each other and date the same gender. You're basically telling everybody screw your bloodline because it ends with you. Plus, I find it really weird. Mina didn't like any of those reasons. If anything, they just sounded very petty. Well, you don't have to like it, but if you're trying to get in the way of people enjoying life or loving somebody, we might have an issue. Tsuyu looked over toward Jiro and Ochako. So, are the both of you going to tell me that you're in a relationship now, or are you just feeling up each other because these two influence you to do so? Jiro did not enjoy being put on the spot out of nowhere. No, we're not dating, but we're just that comfortable with each other. There's nothing wrong with that. Ochako started to feel really uncomfortable as she was holding on to herself. We're kind of friends with benefits if that's how you really want to put it, but the main thing is that we're not hurting anybody by being this way, so why do you have to make it such a big issue out of it? Tsuyu shook her head out of annoyance. Because you're basically forcing others to watch your affectionate form of communication with each other. It's wrong, and it makes other girls basically look bad by making others believe that's how they want to act. Izuku finally decides to get in between everybody. That's enough. Everybody is entitled to their own opinion, even if some of them are wrong, but we're not here to force idealism down other people's throats. So why don't you just go get ready, Tsuyu, while the rest of us do our own thing and leave at our own leisure, just like you. Tsuyu glared in annoyance, but decided to walk away for now as the girls finish getting ready and head towards the bus. But we cut back a little bit in time inside of the guys' locker room as everybody was still getting ready. Denki walked over to Bakugo with a very curious question, but was doing his best not to chuckle while saying it out loud. So, Bakugo, how does it feel after the surgery? Bakugo looked towards Denki with an annoyed look on his face. What the heck are you talking about, dunce face? Denki was making silly gestures while chuckling a little bit. You know, since you lost what makes you a man, should you even really be in the guys' locker room now? Bakugo had a piece of his spirit die at that moment, hearing that sentence, as the rest of him was starting to boil with rage. Do you want to say that again, you electric bastard? Denki knew that he screwed up, but he was still laughing as he ran throughout the locker room with Bakugo hot on his heels as he finally found Shoto and hid behind him. I'm just speaking the truth, man. Everybody's curious. That's why I'm hiding behind the strongest male in the locker room now. Bakugo had explosions going off in his hands like he was going to go through Shoto just to get at Denki. Move out of the way, half and half, unless you want to get hurt as well. Shoto pulled his head out of the locker as he was sipping on some strawberry boba tea. What is going on? He looked back at Denki and then back at Bakugo. Oh, I don't want to get in between the both of you if you're having a lover's moment, but I didn't think just because you lost your balls that means that you would start swinging the other way, Bakugo. The entire locker room started to burst out in laughter and shock, not knowing that Todoroki was actually able to tell jokes. This caused Bakugo to lose his mind as he was getting ready to jump into the air when an explosion popping off in his palm to strike that half and half bastard in front of him, only for him to be held back by a dark hand seeming to be coming from Dark Shadow. Okoyami was keeping his face covered by Dark Shadow. Can you not make so much noise this early? It's too troublesome, so why don't you put a tampon in, Bakugo, and calm down? Bakugo was really getting ready to go ballistic as he blasted away from the dark hand that was holding him. As he touched back down on the ground, he was about to attack, only for him to remember his mom saying that he can't cause any more trouble or risk him being expelled as he stopped dead in his tracks. Whatever, screw you guys. He finished up putting on his gauntlets as he walked out of the locker rooms. The rest of the guys felt pretty accomplished knowing that they knocked him down a few pegs, especially when they found out what he was like in the past towards people. Okoyami had Dark Shadow go back inside of him as he was giving everybody a thumbs up. I gotta say, out of all of us, Shoto being the first to crack a joke was the most surprising out of all of that. Shoto just shrugged his shoulders as he went back to enjoying his tea. I was given a how-to guide for jokes from Mineta. Besides, he wouldn't leave me alone until I at least read some of it. Mineta was chuckling to himself pervertedly. I'm hoping because of this whole scene that I helped out with, my green hair goddess will acknowledge me. Denki gave a thumbs up. That was good. Everybody played their part perfectly. Shinso was surprised as he chose to say nothing, but made sure to bring this up to Izuku and Mina later as he walked through the crowd of the locker room laughing lightly. That was actually very entertaining to watch. Maybe you guys aren't that bad after all. Hiroshima actually felt bad, thinking that solving a problem with negativity never really fixes it, it just makes the situation worse. Was that really necessary though? Sure, he did some bad stuff in the past, but us doing bad things to him now make us no better than him. Heroes are supposed to find a peaceful solution, not a torturing solution. Enzo looked at the redhead, liking his sense of morals but disagreeing with them completely. Listen, as much as I agree with you, he had that coming 10 times over. What Bakugo is going through is justice. It's like the old saying, what comes around goes around. Hiroshima's shoulders slumped, not liking where this was going, but he could understand why people were doing it. I'm not going to stop you guys, but I'm also not going to take part in any of it, so I'm going to be playing a neutral factor in all of this. All of the guys looked at each other as they nodded their heads, understanding that some people decided to play neutral while others wanted to take part in the next Bakugo payback session. But in the end, everybody finished getting ready as both groups met up at the bus. Upon boarding, Izuku, Shinso, and Mina sat in the back row of the bus, making making sure that Izuku was sitting in the middle of both of them. Shinso noticed that Mina was annoyed about something, so decided to figure out what it was. So, what's got your panties in a twist, Pinky? Mina didn't even bother to respond for a second as she was just glaring daggers into the back of Tsuyu's head. It's Tsuyu. She decided to make everybody feel awkward in the girls' locker room by saying that she is uncomfortable with gay relationship and then tells us how frowned upon it is. Shinso had an annoyed look on his face as he was getting ready to get up and say something, only for him to be pulled back into his seat by Izuku. What the heck? Why did you pull me back into my seat? I could have said something to her before we left. Izuku just shook her head. Don't. It's what she wants. By causing an uproar, it gives her statement power. By ignoring her and continuing to live our lives the way we want, it will upset her more. But it will show that we're doing this for the right cause, not to cause an issue with everybody else. Shinso tilted his head back and forth, trying to think about that. I understand that you don't want to cause a scene, but it's not right that she gets to say how she feels and make you and anybody else feel wrong for their choices. Mainly because it's not hurting anybody else if they choose to willingly take part in it. That's when he finally realized that this was about a gay relationship. Wait a minute, Pinky, were you trying to do something wrong with my Izuku again? Ina got a tick mark on her forehead as she started to stare at Shinso. I thought I told you that she's not your Izuku, she's my Izuku. We make a much better couple than the both of you ever would. Shinso got a tick mark on his forehead as he started to get closer. He doesn't get into so much trouble when I'm around, but when you're around she gets in trouble. Don't you think that means something? Izuku started to feel squished in between the both of them as they were arguing. Wanting this to end, she grabs both of them and hugs them tight, pressing their faces into her bosom. Can you please stop? I think the both of you are amazing, so please stop fighting over me. Both Mina and Shinso blushed as they both leaned onto her, staying quiet for the rest of the bus ride as everybody else started talking about quirks and their favorite types of heroes. When they finally arrived at their destination, upon getting off of the bus, they were greeted by the Rescue Hero 13, which caused Ochako's eyes to start sparkling as her favorite hero was here in the flesh. Oh my god, she's actually here. I've always wanted a chance to talk with 13. She's the reason why I want to become a rescue hero. Jiro laughed a little bit as she was trying to calm down Ochako. Easy girl, if you keep getting this excited, you're gonna end up floating into the atmosphere again. 13 was so happy to see that the entirety of Class 1A was so excited about learning rescue. Welcome, Class 1A. This is the Unseen Simulation Joint, or USJ for short. You'll learn different types of rescue training here. 13 took a second to catch her breath as she was making sure that the entirety of Class 1A was listening. Once she was able to assume that they were, she continued her lecture. Here you will be learning from landslides to burning cities and even shipwrecks, but before we get started, is there any questions? Hiroshima, who was looking towards the plaza, noticed a bunch of people there. Yeah, what are the villains for? Are they supposed to make the rescue more realistic? 13 was confused by that statement as she quickly turned around. Those aren't fake villains. Eraser had quickly got ready for battle as he put his goggles over his eyes and his capture scarf was in his hands. Everybody fall back and alert the school. The villains have infiltrated the USJ. Majority of the class started to make their way towards the entrance, only for 3 of them to be standing still. Lucky for them. They didn't get caught up in the black mist that seemed to be covering the doorway, much like everybody else, as the figure started to introduce himself. Hello there, my name is Kodagiri, here to introduce the League of Villains. We decided to break into this Hall of Justice to make it into All Might's grave. But it seems that the symbol of peace is running late, so we'll have to make do with all of you until he shows up. As majority of Class 1A was getting sucked deeper into the darkness, which alarmed Izuku, Mina, and Shinso, they all nodded at each other as they charged into the mist, hoping to get their friends out of there as everything cut it to black for a few seconds. We cut to the perspective of Izuku, who was falling out of the sky into a burning city area. As she was getting worried about hitting the ground, she was caught a little bit roughly but still safe as she saw that her savior was Kirishima. Thanks for that. I guess that villain had a warping quirk. Kirishima gently put her down on the ground. Don't mention it. Bakugo's here as well, but he's over there. there, pointing towards Baku being at the edge of the building. I guess he's keeping an eye out for anything that might come to attack us. Izuku smiled, seeing this as an opportunity to help with her hidden agenda as she skipped over to Bakugo. So, see anything out there? Bakugo flinched as he actually took a step away from Izuku. It would be better if you weren't here, but so far it doesn't seem like anything dangerous. Maybe the villains here are scared of us. Izuku looked over the edge as she could actually see a few villain groups getting ready to use an ambush, being very appreciative in this moment that all the things her father taught her to see the different perspectives instead of seeing them for what they are. Don't be so sure, maybe they heard the story about the girl who broke one of their classmates' balls, so they don't want to mess with us because they don't want to be next. Hiroshima rushed in between the both of them as he was trying to change the subject so the teamwork didn't get into a big disarray. Maybe we should start focusing on finding a way down from this building. I took a look at the fire escape and it looks like it's stable enough to be able to hold all three of us and get us down to street level. Izuku smiled as she got her capture scarf ready in her hands. Then lead the way, I'll hold up the rear since my ass is the best one here. We cut away to the landslide zone as the entire place seems like it was completely sloped over by stone. As three people were falling out of the sky, one of them revealed themselves to be Todoroki, who quickly made a slope out of ice as the group was coming down fast, and unfortunately for the half and half quirk user, he was on the bottom while the one sandwich in between was Denki while Mina was sitting on top of them comfortably. He was confused that she landed on something soft only for her to look down and see that both boys were underneath her as she jumped up embarrassed. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to land on both of you. I hope that you're alright and I wasn't too heavy. Denki was just giggling with his own perverted thoughts. You can sit on top of me anytime. Mina had her skin crawl, feeling like she was being watched by a predator that wasn't strong enough to take her but enough to keep her on her toes. Noted. Todoroki pushed Denki off of him, annoyed as he looked around, seeing small little caves in the landslide while also wondering where the villains are. As much as I would like to actually talk with you, I think the situation is more important than our own possible ideas. Mina shivered a little bit by how cold and robotic that statement was. I truly don't know what's more cold, your quirk or your attitude towards life. Loosen up a little bit. Just because we're in a life or death situation doesn't mean that we can't be cheerful. Todoroki rolled his eyes as he started to walk away from the group. Do as you please, but I'm going back to the plaza. There seems to be some very powerful villains there, and if I can beat them with only my eyes, I can prove my father wrong. Denki finally got off of the ground, watching Todoroki lead the both of them behind. I don't know about you, but he has a sign on his back that basically says, "Daddy issues, somebody please help me." Mina giggled a little bit into her hands. Forget a sign, it's basically tattooed on his face. We cut to the perspective of Shinso, who was splashing down into a bunch of water around him. Confused, he noticed that a shark-like villain was about to attack him, only to be saved by Tsuyu. He quickly wrapped her tongue around him and brought him onto the boat as he was catching his breath as a little bit of water was coming out of his mouth. Once he gained his bearings, he was able to notice that Tokoyami was trying to dry himself off from the water, while Dark Shadow seemed to be looking around frantically while Tsuyu finally came out of the water and stood up on the deck. It looks like it's just the three of us here. Shinso looked back and forth, noticing that all the villains in the water seemed to be hesitating to get any closer to the boat. They're completely surrounded, but it looks like they're a little bit afraid to get too close to our boat. Tokoyami was trying to think, knowing that Dark Shadow couldn't stretch far enough for them to get from the ship to land without getting into the water. I wonder how long do we have to make a plan before they start attacking wildly. Shinso checked to see if his voice alterator was still working, but seemed to be damaged from the water, reminding himself to get it upgraded later if they survive this. I don't know, but we should use our time sparingly to come up with an idea to get back to land before they start attacking us. But that's where I'm gonna leave it off this time, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this part. I'm sorry it took so long. So many complications in my life have been going on, but with all that said, I'm out this time. Peace.